The sky was dark like night, even though it was only noon. The rain came down hard, like someone had opened a giant tap in the sky. Trees shook in the wind. The road was narrow, wet, and slippery. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and lightning flashed like sharp knives in the sky. Celeste Jordan tightened her grip on the steering wheel. Her hands were cold, but her mind was burning with stress. She had one goal today: get to Jackson, Mississippi by the p.m. That meeting was everything. A $1.7 billion merger. Years of planning. Her whole career led to this moment. But life had other plans. The black SUV bumped suddenly, then it pulled hard to the right. Celeste hit the brakes and carefully stopped on the side of the road. Her heart sank. Something felt wrong. She took a deep breath, leaned over, and looked at the screen on the dashboard. No signal. She stepped out into the rain. The wind pushed against her. Her black heels sank slightly into the muddy ground. She looked at the front tire, flat, completely ruined. Shredded rubber hung off the rim like torn paper. She sighed and looked around. Nothing. No houses, no stores, no people, just endless trees and rain. Her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. Meeting with Manuel Capital, Jackson, MS to PM. She had set that reminder weeks ago. She didn't need it now. The meeting had been living inside her head for days. She had canceled interviews, skipped family calls, and even worked through her birthday. And now, a flat tire, in the middle of nowhere. She sat back in the car, frustrated. She didn't cry. Celeste Jordan didn't cry. She built her empire from nothing. She had been homeless at 16, flipping burgers to survive. No parents, no support, just hunger and ambition. She wasn't going to let a tire break her. But this storm, it felt personal. She rested her head on the steering wheel. I don't have time for this, she whispered. Then she heard it. Laughter. Not cruel laughter. Happy, childlike laughter. She looked up, through the heavy rain. 3 boys were riding their bikes down the road. They looked around 11 to 13 years old, soaked to the bone, but full of energy. One of them saw her and stopped. The others followed. Ma'am, you okay? The tallest one asked. Celeste looked at them, mud on their shoes, torn jackets, no umbrellas, but their eyes were bright. I have a flat tire, she said. The boys looked at each other and grinned. We can help, said the boy with a red hoodie. We fix our uncle's truck sometimes. Without asking for anything, they dropped their bikes and got to work. One boy took off his backpack and pulled out a small wrench. The smallest boy crawled in the mud to place the jack under the SUV. The third boy, who had a flashlight attached to his bike, held it steady so the others could see. Celeste just stood there, stunned. They were quick, careful, and kind. No hesitation, no questions, just action. She watched as their hands moved with practice. The tallest one wiped his wet forehead and looked up at her. What brings you out here, miss? She smiled for the first time all day. A meeting, a big one. You rich? The smallest boy asked. Kind of, she replied, chuckling softly. The boys laughed. After 20 minutes, the tire was replaced. They stood, soaked and smiling, looking proud. Thank you, Celeste said. Please, let me give you something. Money, food, anything. The boy in the red hoodie shook his head. Nah, ma'am. Grandma says if you help someone, you already got paid in your heart. Those words hit her harder than the thunder above. They grabbed their bikes and rode away, splashing through puddles, disappearing into the storm. Celeste stood there, frozen. She didn't even get their names. Back in the car, the heater hummed softly. She looked at her phone again. Still no signal. But suddenly, the meeting didn't matter as much. Something inside her had shifted. A simple act of kindness by 3 boys with nothing. It reminded her of herself, the hungry teenager who once handed a stranger her last sandwich because he looked colder than I did. She had forgotten that girl. Now, because of 3 muddy, smiling boys. She remembered. Celeste Jordan turned the car around, not toward Jackson, but back toward the town she left behind, because something had just changed, and it all started with the rain. The rain had started to ease, but Celeste's heart was still storming. She drove slowly back down the road, windshield wipers squeaking with each pass. Her thoughts were louder than the thunder now. The boys were long gone, but their words stayed. In her mind, you already got paid in your heart. No one in her business world spoke like that. Not at board meetings, not on investor calls, not in luxury hotel lounges. There, Everything had a price. Kindness was weakness. Time was money. But those boys, they reminded her of something. Of someone died long ago. She had lived just 30 minutes from here, in a worn-down trailer at the edge of Tall Pines, Mississippi. She hadn't said that name out loud in 20 years. Not since she left for college on a scholarship, no. One thought she'd win. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Poverty was a weight, and ambition was the only way she had learned to fly. But now, she was flying back, toward the place she had buried deep inside her memory. The GPS had no signal, but her hands remembered the way. The sign was old and rusted. Welcome to Tall Pines, home of the Fighting Hawks. The paint had faded. The smiley face on the sign was cracked. Even the hawk on the logo looked tired. She turned left at the only gas station in town still standing, still with the same flickering neon sign, Manny's Fuel and Feed. The old men sitting outside under the porch roof barely looked up. One of them squinted behind his glasses. Lord have mercy, is that Celeste Jordan? He whispered. Nudging the other, Celeste noticed them, but didn't stop. She kept driving, slowly now. Every corner brought back memories like waves hitting the shore. That's where she learned to ride a bike. That's where her mother used to sell homemade pies. That's the old library where she would hide from the cold with books piled high on her lap. And then, there was her childhood home. It wasn't even a house, just a rust-colored trailer, with 2 broken steps leading up to the door. The porch light was gone. The paint was peeling, and the swing her mom, once used to rocking, was now hanging by one rusted chain. Celeste parked the car and sat quietly, watching. A woman opened the door. Her hair was wrapped in a colorful scarf, and her eyes were tired but kind. She looked like life had been heavy on her shoulders. A small boy ran out behind her, holding a toy car made from an old soda can. Celeste smiled softly. Some things don't change, she whispered, but something inside her did change. She stepped out. The woman looked up, confused. Can I help you? Celeste nodded. I used to live here, a long time ago. The woman looked closely. Her eyes widened. Oh, my God, you're Celeste. You're the one who made it. We see you on TV sometimes. My mama used to tell me about you. Said you were born right in that back room. Celeste laughed quietly. That's true. There was a hole in the roof. Rain used to drip on my crib. I remember. The woman said, stepping down slowly. You came from nothing. Gave the rest of us hope. Celeste looked around. Doesn't feel like much has changed. The woman sighed. No, ma'am. Not much money here. School's underfunded. Kids got dreams, but not the tools. Same old story. Celeste felt her chest tighten. There were 3 boys today, on bikes. Help me fix a flat tire in the rain. No reward, just kindness. The woman smiled. That sounds like Micah, Terrell, and Darius. Good boys, always helping folks. Celeste looked out toward the town. She saw it differently now. Not as a place she had escaped, but a place full of people who had tried, who still tried, every day. I want to visit the school, Celeste said suddenly. The woman's face lit up in shock. The school, Miss Celeste, it's barely running. Roof leaks. Library's got 5 books. Kids share the computers, but they still go every day. Celeste nodded slowly. Then that's where I'm going. She got back in her SUV and drove straight to the school building. It was worse than she imagined. The sign was crooked, windows taped up. The grass on the football field was overgrown. The hallway smelled like old chalk and rainwater. But the children, bright-eyed and full of laughter, ran through the halls like it was the finest palace. She met the principal, a kind older man with soft gray hair and a crooked tie. Miss Jordan, he asked, stunned. We don't usually get visitors like you. I didn't come as a visitor, she said. I came as someone who forgot where she came from and is ready to remember. He smiled gently. You're welcome any time. Celeste walked into a 5th grade classroom, and there they were, the same 3 boys, Micah, Terrell, Darius, still in damp clothes, still smiling. Their eyes widened when they saw her. They stood up quickly, not knowing what to say. Celeste knelt in front of them. You boys helped me today, and I want to help you back, not just with money, but with hope, real hope for your school, your dreams, your town. They didn't understand what she meant, but the next morning they would, when a helicopter landed on the school field. And the whole town came running. The next morning, Tall Pines woke up to something they had never seen or even imagined. It began with a sound that didn't belong out at first. It was just a soft rumble, like a faraway storm. Then it grew louder. Windows began to rattle. Birds flew from the trees in flocks. Children at Tall Pines Elementary looked up from their breakfast trays, frozen mid-bite. The teachers stepped outside, shielding their eyes from the rising sun. That's when they saw it, a black helicopter cutting across the sky, its blades slicing the morning air, sleek, powerful, glossy like new glass. It wasn't a rescue chopper or a news crew. No one had ever seen anything like it in this small town. The principal, Mr. Lawson, ran onto the front lawn. His tie flew over his shoulder as he squinted up. What in the world? The helicopter circled once, then slowly descended onto the muddy school field. Children pressed their faces against the classroom windows. Teachers held them back gently, just in case. Every student, every soul in the building was watching. Then the door of the helicopter opened. Out stepped a woman in a cream-colored coat and leather boots. Her hair was tied in a neat bun, and she wore dark sunglasses. But even without seeing her eyes, the kids knew who it was. Celeste Jordan. One child gasped, "That's the lady from the billboard." Another whispered, "She was on TV." Mama cried when she won that award. The boys from yesterday, Micah, Terrell, and Darius stood in stunned silence near the cafeteria. They couldn't speak. Their mouths were open, their eyes wide. Celeste walked across the field, her heels sinking slightly into the soft dirt. She smiled as she approached the principal. "Morning," she said warmly. "Dahmer," Lawson stammered. "And Miss Jordan, to what do we owe this?" Celeste looked toward the school. "I came to return a favor." She turned to face the children gathering outside now, holding each other's hands, whispering, confused, amazed. "I came because 3 young men helped me yesterday. They didn't ask who I was. They didn't care what I had. They just helped. That kind of heart, that kind of spirit, it's something the world needs more of." The boys' classmates turned to look at them, now slowly realizing who she meant. Micah blushed. Terrell scratched the back of his neck. Darius smiled, small and shy. Celeste continued, "Years ago, I sat in this same building, in these same halls. I ate peanut butter sandwiches in the back row and borrowed the same books from the school library every week. And just like you all, I dreamed of a life where I could change the world." She paused, her voice now thick with emotion. "But then I got busy trying to win. I forgot what it was like to be here. I forgot where I came from until yesterday." The students were silent now. Not one phone rang, not one whisper. Even the wind had stopped. "I want to help you dream again," she said softly. "All of you." She turned to Mr. Lawson and handed him a sealed envelope. He opened it carefully, then gasped, This is," Celeste nodded, $5 million for a brand new library. New computers, art classes, music, after school, meals, and every cracked window fixed. The teachers covered their mouths. Some cried. One dropped her clipboard. But more than that, Celeste continued, "I want to start something bigger." She looked back at the helicopter. Out stepped a woman in suits carrying folders, followed by a man wheeling out a model board covered in blueprints. A program for this town. Jobs, internships, small business grants for the parents, scholarships for the students. We'll call it the Tall Pines Promise. The schoolyard broke into applause, loud, long, unstoppable. Children hugged each other. Teachers wept. Even the janitor, Mr. Calvin, dropped his mop and laughed through tears. Micah looked at Terrell. "Is this real?" Terrell nodded slowly, still stunned. "We just changed a tire, man." Celeste turned to them, crouching gently so she could speak eye to eye. "You didn't just fix my car. You fixed me. You reminded me of something I lost." Micah whispered, "What did you lose?" Celeste blinked back tears. "My purpose." She placed a hand on each of their shoulders. "And because of you, I found it again." From that moment on, everything changed. Not just for the boys, but for everyone. Construction trucks rolled into town that same week. Painters restored old buildings. Volunteers arrived with books and supplies. Kids who had never held a laptop now learned coding. Parents who had never dreamed beyond their street now started small businesses. All because 3 boys helped a stranger in the rain. And that stranger never forgot. The rain was gone, but something much greater had begun to pour into the heart of Tall Pines' hope. It wasn't just a helicopter landing that changed the air. It was the feeling that, for the first time in years, Someone saw them, really saw them, not as a poor town with a broken school, but as a place worth saving. And it all started with 3 muddy boys on bicycles. Word spread like wildfire. The story made the local news, then regional headlines. Boys help stranger with flat tire. Stranger turns out to be billionaire Celeste Jordan. But to the people of Tall Pines, the headlines didn't matter. What mattered was what was happening. Within a week, a team of workers began building a temporary classroom on the school grounds. The old ceiling tiles stopped leaking. The rusty heaters were replaced with brand new ones that made the classrooms warm for the first time in years. A colorful bookmobile arrived on Monday mornings. Even the school lunches started to look different: trail vegetables, fresh fruit, and enough food for everyone. But something else changed, too. Something quiet. The children began to walk taller. Micah, Terrell, and Darius went from those boys on bikes to heroes in the eyes of their classmates. But they didn't act like heroes. They still held the door open for teachers, still offered their cookies at lunch to kids who forgot theirs, still stayed after school to help carry supplies. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low and golden light spilled through the hallway windows, Celeste visited again, this time without cameras or reporters. She wore jeans and a hoodie, and her hair was pulled into a loose bun. Only the school secretary recognized her right away and whispered. She came back. She knocked gently on the 5th grade classroom door. Inside, Miss Honeywell turned. "Boys, we have a guest." Micah looked up from his math worksheet. His eyes lit up. "Miss Celeste." The other grinned and waved. Celeste smiled. "Can I borrow you 3 for a walk?" she asked Dot out in the yard. The boys followed her toward the old wooden bench under the willow tree. They sat down together, the tree's long branches swaying like curtains in the breeze. Celeste reached into her bag and pulled out 3 sketchbooks, one red, one blue, one green. "I brought you these," she said softly. "I want to hear your dreams." The boys looked at her, confused. "My what?" Terrell asked. "Your dreams," she repeated. "What you see when you close your eyes and imagine the life you want." Micah turned the red book in his hands. "I never wrote it down before." "That's okay," Celeste said. "You don't need money to start a dream. You just need to believe it's possible." There was a long pause. Then Darius spoke up. "I want to build things, like real things. Not just Lego stuff, like bridges, roads, buildings that don't fall." Celeste's eyes sparkled. "You'd make a great engineer." Micah smiled shyly. "I want to make shoes, like the kind my big cousin used to draw. Sneakers with names and colors that mean something." Celeste nodded. "Design is powerful. It tells stories." Terrell scratched his head. I want to start a restaurant. One that makes food like my grandma's, but also has books for kids to read while they wait." Celeste grinned wide. "A soul food cafe library. That's genius." The boys laughed, a little shy but proud. "Good," she said. "Now write them down. Draw them. Dream them. Because those dreams, they matter. Not just to you but to me, and to the world." She stood up, brushing leaves from her jeans. "When I was your age, I used to sit under this very tree. I dreamed of a big life, but I never thought anyone would care." Darius looked up. "Why'd you come back?" Celeste turned slowly. "Because I forgot something important. I thought success was about money, but it's not. It's about people, and it's about remembering who you were before the world told you to forget." They sat in silence for a moment, just listening to the wind. The next morning, all 3 boys brought their sketchbooks to school. Darius had drawn a glowing bridge over a river, with people holding hands across it. Micah had sketched sneakers, called hope walkers, with wings on the soles. Terrell had drawn a cafe called Books and Biscuits, with smiling children at every table. Miss Honeywell framed the pages and placed them on the wall above the blackboard. "Dreams don't need riches to start," she said to the class. "They just need a heart willing to try." That same day, Celeste met with the mayor. Tall Pines didn't have much money in the city budget, but it had land. It had old buildings and strong hands and hard-working people. So together, they started something new. The Dream Incubator. An old warehouse was turned into a center for ideas. Kids could come after school and learn how to turn their sketches into plans. Adults could take free business classes. Grandmothers taught sewing. Teens learned photography. Painters, poets, bakers, and builders all gathered under one roof. And on the first wall inside, painted in bold colors, were the words, "A flat tire didn't ruin my day, it helped me find my way back home." Celeste Jordan's community came alive, not because someone rich gave them handouts, but because Someone who had left came back and listened and told them their dreams mattered. It started like any other Thursday. Morning dew clung to the tall grass behind Tall Pines Elementary. The sun peeked through the clouds, painting the sky with soft gold and pink. The students lined up for breakfast, clutching their trays of warm pancakes and apples. Teachers chatted quietly over coffee in the staff lounge. The janitor, Mr. Calvin, was humming an old blues song as he polished the hallway floors. But by 9 a.m., something unusual began to happen. Black SUVs rolled up quietly to the school's front lot. Men in suits stepped out, scanning the area. Police cruisers followed, then news vans. Then a glossy black car with flags on both sides. Students pressed their noses to the glass windows again, just like the day the helicopter came. But this time, it wasn't Celeste Jordan. It was the governor of Mississippi. Governor Harriet Fields, a powerful black woman with sharp eyes, silver-streaked braids, and a calm voice that made people listen. She stepped out of her car and looked at the school with quiet awe. "It's smaller than I imagined," she said. Her assistant nodded. "Yes, ma'am, but they say something big is growing here." Principal Lawson, breathless and sweating, rushed out to greet her. "Governor Fields, it's such an honor." She smiled kindly. "The honor's mine. Mr. Lawson, I came to see this place with my own eyes. Been hearing stories. Can't ignore whispers that loud." Just then, Celeste Jordan arrived again in jeans and a soft gray blazer. No cameras, no microphones. Just her notebook in hand and a mission in her heart. "You made it," she said, walking up to the governor. "I had to," Governor Fields replied. "A billionaire builds a dream center in the poorest town in the state. I had to see who remembers where she came from." They both smiled. Inside the classroom, the students didn't fully understand what a governor was, but they understood the importance of her presence. Micah, Terrell, and Darius sat at the front of the room, their sketchbooks now filled with even more pages sat proudly on their desks. "I think we're famous now," Darius whispered, nudging Micah. "Nah," Micah grinned. "We're just dreamers with good timing." When the governor entered the classroom, the room fell still, but she didn't speak right away. Instead, she picked up Micah's drawing of his dream sneaker. "These are beautiful," she said softly. "Who made this?" Micah raised his hand. Nervously, "Me, ma'am." She smiled. "Tell me about them." Micah stood up slowly, holding the paper close to his chest. "They're called Hope Walkers. They're shoes for kids like me, kids who maybe don't got much, but still wanna walk proud. They're for school, for church, for running fast when it rains, and for looking sharp even when you're broke." The room was silent. Then Governor Fields clapped. Not polite clapping, real clapping, the kind that echoes from the soul. "Young man," she said, "if we had shoes like that in my time, I might have become governor sooner." Everyone laughed, and the tension melted. Celeste leaned in and whispered to the governor, "That boy changed my life." All three of them did. Governor Fields nodded. "And you changed theirs. Now let's change everyone's." They all gathered in the gymnasium, which still smelled faintly of old rubber balls and fresh paint. A banner hung at the back that read, "Tall Pines believes again." The governor took the stage. "Mississippi isn't known for miracles," she began, "but maybe we should be." She paused, because here on a stormy road, three boys didn't walk past a stranger. They stopped. They helped. They asked for nothing. And the woman they helped, she remembered who she was and what this town could be. The audience, students, parents, teachers, old folks, babies on laps listened with wide eyes. And because of that, the governor continued, "I'm announcing the Hope Walkers grant, $10 million over the next 3 years to fund youth innovation programs in rural Mississippi, starting right here in Tall Pines." The gym exploded in cheers. Mothers cried. Children jumped up and down. Teachers hugged each other. Terrell stood frozen. Did she say 10 million? Celeste stood beside the governor and added, "And the first official project funded will be the dream of these 3 boys, Micah, Terrell, and Darius." She pulled back a curtain behind them. There it was, a giant poster of the Dream Incubator, now planned to triple in size. One section would become a sneaker design studio. Another would become a mini restaurant and reading cafe. And the third, a junior engineering lab, complete with 3D printers, circuits, and building kits, all inspired by 3 pages from 3 old sketchbooks. After the ceremony, as the crowd spilled out into the warm sunshine, reporters swarmed Celeste, but she waved them off gently. She had one more thing to do. She gathered the boys and walked them to the very edge of the school field. It was quiet there, just the sound of wind rustling through tall grass. You know, she said, kneeling beside them. I built companies worth billions, but this feels bigger. Terrell looked up. Why us? Miss Celeste, you could have done this anywhere. Celeste touched her heart. Because the world is loud and easy to ignore people in small places. But kindness doesn't care about how big a place is. It lives where hearts are strong. Micah smiled. We're glad you came back. She stood and looked out over the town. I didn't just come back, she said softly. I finally came home, and from that day forward, the name Tall Pines meant something. It wasn't just a town anymore. It was a spark, a symbol, a promise that no matter how small your beginning or how muddy your shoes, you can still change the world. Years from now, people would look back at it not as just a story but as a turning point. But the truth is, it all started with a sketch, a quiet one, drawn by a shy, big-hearted boy named Micah under the flickering light of a leaky classroom ceiling. It wasn't meant to be famous. It wasn't flashy or perfect, just a pair of shoes with little wings on the heels and the word Hope Walkers written in shaky block letters. But that one drawing would go further than anyone in Tall Pines could imagine, because dreams, even the smallest ones, have the power to fly. The national press picked up the story after the governor's visit, first local TV stations, then national newspapers, then viral video clips of Celeste hugging the boys and promising to fund there. Dreams. One morning, Micah opened his classroom door and nearly fainted. 3 men in black suits were standing there with cameras, notepads, and microphones. One held out a card. Micah, the man said, smiling warmly, we're from Nike's Youth Innovation Team. We saw your sketch on the news, and we want to help you make them real. Micah couldn't even speak. He just stood there, stunned. And that was just the beginning. The birth of the Hope Walker movement. Celeste brought together her contacts, investors, and designers. She gave Micah room in the dream incubator with real design tools, mentors, and digital tablets. But she never forced him. Only if you want to, she told him. Your dream, your way. Micah wanted it badly. He poured his heart into it. His after-school hours became filled with sketching, learning, asking questions, and experimenting with colors and materials. He even gave each color of the shoes a name. Midnight Storm for the day he met Celeste. Golden Roots for the people of Tall Pines. Rainlight Blue for hope that shines even through sadness. He asked Terrell and Darius to help. Terrell sketched the showbox design, a cardboard lid that opened like a book with pages inside, telling the story of how the shoes were born. Darius figured out how to make the soles stronger and the laces easier for kids with disabilities to tie. He called it engineering for everyone. They worked as a team. Their dream wasn't just to sell sneakers. It was to tell a story of kindness, of forgotten towns, of small boys who dared to care. When the first prototypes were finished, Celeste arranged a surprise. The launch at Madison Square Garden. Thousands gathered under glittering lights. Models wore the shoes on stage. Screens above showed the journey from that rainy road to the classroom bench to the design table. Then, a spotlight fell on 3 small chairs at center stage. Micah, Terrell, and Darius were called up. Their hearts raced. The crowd stood and cheered like thunder. Micah stepped to the mic and said softly, I used to draw shoes just for fun. But now I know dreams can run faster than fear if you just keep walking. These aren't just shoes, they're Hope Walkers, and they belong to every kid who ever felt invisible. It went viral in minutes. Celebrities posted videos wearing Hope Walkers. Schools requested pairs for kids in need. An NBA star wore them in a game and pointed to the little wings after every dunk. The boys watched from their small living rooms in Tall Pines, eyes wide, as the world celebrated them, the town that became a symbol back home. Tall Pines changed forever. New businesses opened, bookstores, bakeries, youth centers. The Dream Incubator expanded into 3 buildings. A once-abandoned theater was restored and renamed the Hope House, where kids could share their talents in art, music, and poetry every year. On the anniversary of the flat tire, the town held a celebration called the Day of the Walk. Children wore their Hope Walkers and paraded down the streets. Elderly folks told stories on porches. Families gathered under lanterns and ate together. Celeste attended every year, not as a billionaire, not as a guest, but as a neighbor. 10 years later, the sketch still hung in the Dream Incubator frame, slightly smudged, and signed by the 3. Boys, who started at old Don Micah, was now a lead designer at his own company. Terrell ran Books and Biscuits, a successful chain of cafe libraries across 3 states. Darius became a civil engineer who helped build schools in small towns like theirs. But every year, they returned to Tall Pines Dot, and every year, they found Celeste waiting for them. She never missed a walk. That last walk together, Celeste was older now, a little slower, her hair silver, but her eyes still bright. As they walked down Main Street together, her beside the 3 boys who once fixed her. Tired, she looked around at the families laughing, the kids jumping puddles, the music playing from the porch radios. Dot, and she smiled. This, she said softly, her voice thick with emotion, this was always the dream. I just forgot. Micah looked over. You gave it back to us. She shook her head gently. No, you gave it back to me. She reached into her coat pocket and handed Micah something, a copy of the very first sketch. He turned it over. On the back, in her handwriting, were the words, kindness is the spark, but dreams are the fire. They stood there for a moment, surrounded by life, laughter, and light. And the world kept walking forward, because of one small act, because of 3 boys, because of one woman who chose to remember where she came from, because of a sketch that changed everything.